Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. This is a game that I think is actually... I think this game is a little bit bigger and more important in the grand scheme of things than many people realize. That is the Vanderbilt-Kentucky game. And listen, I know that this wasn't the sexiest game on the slate. And I know that it was on SEC Network, and it's not a game that we're going to overreact to, and we're going to pretend that Kentucky is the greatest team in the world or that Vanderbilt's the most terrible team in the world. But this was, in my opinion, a kind of important win. Kentucky gets the victory 82-61 over a pretty good Vanderbilt team. Remember, Vanderbilt beat Kentucky earlier in the year. That's one. Then, oh, by the way, beat Tennessee earlier in the year. That's two. And then, oh, by the way, almost swept Tennessee this past weekend in Knoxville before Tennessee made a late rally. So you're talking about a Vanderbilt team that is going to be in the NCAA tournament at 17-9 overall, 5-8 in the SEC, and you just beat them by 21 in your place. Now, I know what people say, Torres, we are never going to celebrate a Kentucky win over Vandy. How dare you insinuate? Well, listen, context matters here, just like context matters anywhere in sports and in life and in the world of college basketball. And what is the context right now? The context is Kentucky, for a frontline team that believes it can get to a Final Four, is as banged up as anybody in the sport. They don't have Lamont Butler, their starting point guard and their most important player. They don't have Kirk Risa, their backup point guard, and I wouldn't say their second most important player, but you need a point guard. And they don't have Jackson Robinson, who is an elite shooter, an elite scorer, one of the best players on that team, who also is basically the third string point guard. Okay, so you're playing without 3 point guards. And you are continuing to win games in the toughest league in college basketball. And so I tweeted this out on, Wednesday night. I said, I think, and this is going to sound crazy, because Kentucky in the out of conference beat Duke on a neutral. Duke's going to be a number 1 seed. They beat Gonzaga on a neutral. Gonzaga's not great, but that's still a good win. They beat Florida to start the regular season. They beat Mississippi State on the road. But what I would say and what I would argue is that the last 2 weeks have been Mark Pope's best coaching job as the Kentucky Wildcats head coach. And it sounds crazy and it sounds whatever. To me, it's not even a debate, though, okay? Because the bottom line is, listen, the Duke win is incredible. The Florida win is incredible. That goes without saying. We know that. But you were at full strength in those games. You were at your best in those games. Not only is it Kentucky not at its best in these last couple games, they're not even close to the best version of themselves. And just talk it out. Pretend it's not Kentucky. Pretend it's not the biggest brand in college basketball, the one that we overanalyze everything. Pick any team in America. You're without your starting point guard. You're without your backup point guard. You're without your third string point guard who is also a double-figure scorer. You're not supposed to win games in the toughest conference of college basketball. Well, look at Kentucky's last 4 games. You beat without your starting point guard, without everybody. You beat South Carolina. Okay, who really cares? South Carolina is the worst team in the league. What does it really matter? Then you beat Tennessee at home for the clean sweep of Tennessee, one of your big rivals. By the way, kind of worth noting, 5-star Nate Ament was there. Kind of a big deal because, again, you're not only winning, you're winning in front of one of the best recruits in America and the best uncommitted player in America that you're trying to convince to come to Kentucky. So that kind of worked out well as well. You beat South Carolina. You beat Tennessee. The Texas game we talked about on Saturday's show, Sunday's show, is the fact that game against Texas, you were in control of. You were in control against Texas, and you end up falling apart. You're up 5 with, 3.5 minutes to go? And then you beat Vandy. So without 3 key players, including essentially your 3 top point guards, you are now on the season 3-1 in a blown lead from being 4-0. And so to me, it's the best. Like, I was watching that game against Vandy, and it's like, it's not that I don't know who the players are on the court, but like, these were guys that you didn't even think were even going to play this year that are playing meaningful minutes. Travis Perry is a kid, listen, great story from the state of Kentucky, leading scorer, whatever. but he was not a guy that anybody thought that you would have to rely on at all this season. Well, guess what ends up happening? Bunch of injuries. This kid has to play as a true freshman, is starting as a true freshman, and is giving you good minutes. 6 points, 2 assists, 1 steal in this game. Trent Noah, we've talked about him a ton. Did not particularly play well on Wednesday night against Vandy, but was great against Texas, was great against Tennessee. That's not a guy that you thought was going to have to play meaningful. Like, I was watching this game against Vandy, and I'm like, these are guys that should not be on an SEC court right now, not because they're not good enough or they might not eventually be good enough, but because these were guys that you did not expect to have to play all season long. By the way, Ansley Almanor was at Fairleigh Dickinson last year, was a guy that when he entered the portal, as we've discussed, the biggest offer that he had when he was in the portal was Siena. And Kentucky offered him as the 8th, 9th man, and he is stepping up, and he is playing big minutes, and he played well on Tuesday night or Wednesday night with 9 points. By the way, Colin Chandler was literally on a Mormon mission at this time last year. Could not pick up a basketball. Did not play basketball for 2 years. He's playing meaningful minutes at SEC games. Last night or Wednesday night, he played 15 minutes off the bench, had 7.6 rebounds. By the way, did say in the preseason, I think that kid's a future NBA player. But I just bring it up to say that there is no business for this team to play this well over the course of this stretch of the schedule when you are deep in SEC play, when everybody knows your strengths, everybody knows your weaknesses, you're playing NCAA tournament caliber teams every night, and you have proceeded to go 3-1 over the last 4 games, and the only loss that you had is a loss to Texas in which you were in control until the final couple minutes. And so to me, listen, this isn't going to win. Nobody's building a statue for Mark Pope off of this. Nobody is, putting his name up in the rafters next to Adolph Rupp and whatever. But I think this is his best coaching job because he has a bunch of guys that we did not think were going to be playing at all this year, let alone the roles that they are playing. And they are not only surviving, they are winning SEC games. And I think it has to give you enthusiasm for the back half of this schedule. Listen, I don't know who's going to be available Saturday against Alabama. I know Lamont Butler's getting closer. And I know that we got Auburn still on the schedule coming up if you're a Kentucky fan and at Missouri. But again, what have we said on this show? The goal isn't to be great every night now in mid to late February. The goal is to get to March and be healthy. You already have a tournament resume. We've talked about it. Sweep at Tennessee, win against Duke on a neutral, win against Florida at home, win at Mississippi State, win against Gonzaga on a neutral. They have an NCAA tournament resume right now. The goal is to just get healthy for March. And oh, by the way, you're picking up great wins along the way. Again, Vanderbilt's not going to define a season, but it is a great win. I give Mark Pope credit. He deserves credit for having this team ready to go. And I think, again, this has been some of his best coaching over the course of the season.